He's appointed a fellow called Paulo Guedes as his economic advisor, a guy who has a PhD from the University of Chicago. Guedes is very liberal. He's talking about privatizing state-owned enterprises. He's talking about cutting spending, cutting taxes. So the team looks very liberal. That's why I think markets are responding. One of the questions is, will Bolsonaro let Guedes be Guedes? Because if you look at his voting record as a member of the lower house, he was instinctively a nationalist, an economic nationalist. He's now saying that he's become liberal, and appointing Guedes is a signal that this is his intention as if he becomes president. But there's some doubts about how genuine this commitment is.
Anthony, I'm going to say the word alleged and reported before I say the next comments, because if they are true, then they are defamatory. He has been, in fact, you know what, I'm going to couch my terms. He's been stunningly derogatory about gay people. He's been stunningly derogatory, allegedly, about those, allegedly about black people, and allegedly about women as well, and women's rights as well, and has been laudatory in his praise of previous dictatorships as well. Why do 52% of the voters who are women vote for a man like this?
I think people have a number of ways to rationalize these, and I think you can look at these quotes, you can Google them and find them, and there are a lot of excuses that he makes, but he has said all
he's called women tramps. Is that right?
Sorry?
I read he's called women tramps. He's called refugees the scum of the earth. Well, I thought the Brazilians were stunningly open-minded people.
There is a gender gap. I mean, I haven't seen it in the voting returns. In the polling, there was an indication of about a 15 or 16% gender gap. So there are women who will not vote for him under any circumstances because of some of these things he said. I think other people rationalize and say, well, it was taken out of context. It was in a context where he's being provoked, and he wouldn't rule like this. And he is tacking to the center. He's trying to sound more moderate, and he's targeting the Northeast especially, because that's the region where he did least well in this first round. And he's trying to sound moderate to attract voters in the Northeast. But a lot of people rationalize, and they say, oh, he didn't really mean these things.
Okay, he didn't really mean it. These words just fell out of his mouth in a different context. Okay, we'll leave that one there. In terms of the economy then as well, I'm told this country needs a massive fiscal overhaul. They have a huge problem on the deficit and the debt to GDP, which is growing as well at the same time as well. As we know from the last 10 years as well, corruption has been endemic, both at state level and indeed at private companies as well. Do we see anything in Guedes and Bolsonaro's manifesto that will address these issues?
They are talking about the deficit. They're talking about pension reform. I mean, the deficit is 7% of GDPs, and borrowing costs for the Brazilian government are high. So this is an issue that I think both Haddad and Bolsonaro know that they have to address. I think the question is, if you're committing to slashing taxes at the same time, can you get the balance right? It doesn't really sound that credible. There isn't really, no one's addressing the issue of increasing taxes in some areas, because you've got half the taxes from the federal government come from consumption, which is quite regressive. There's very little, taxes on high incomes are relatively low, taxes on wealth are relatively low. And because of the composition of the Congress, it's very unlikely that a candidate who proposed increasing taxes in those areas would be able to get a majority in Congress to enact those.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.